So do I.
I'll be right there. Tulipalooza. On now. Make it super at Supercheap Auto.
If you don't use your annual extras limits within a year, your health insurer probably takes them away and they get sucked into the infinite black hole of nothingness.
Unless you're with AHM this financial year, because they're rolling over most unused extras so they don't disappear.
Which means if you join by June 30, you could get up to double the extras limits until July 2025.
Hey!
Don't lose your unused extras. Join AHM by June 30. With AHM, you're good.
Tonight, putting the brakes on plans for dozens more cameras and lower speed limits on major roads. No accident at the southern suburbs man accused of setting his own home on fire. The urgent call to roll up our sleeves as the state's hospital crisis worsens. Mystery over what caused a severe tip. Well, it's one of the biggest killers of Aussie men. Now, a new simple test you can do at home, and it could help in the battle against prostate cancer. Why it could be even better than a blood test, so don't miss that story. It's a little later in 7 News. On Flashback this week, we're marking a major milestone in the world of entertainment. It's 100 years since Adelaide's first commercial radio station went to air. So crank up your wireless as we remember 5DN.
When it comes to 5DN, there's one name that immediately comes to mind.
There was something more about DN.
Jeremy Cordeaux was not only one of the station's best-known announcers, he also once owned it. 5DN first went to air from a house at Parkside on what's now Green Hill Road. It was started by the Hume family.
Don't know whether he was a ham or he just sort of cottoned onto the idea that you could start a radio station. And he did, at his dining room table.
There were radio plays and live singers, wholesome entertainment.
The idea of a radio was something around which the whole family would gather.
Stars like Mel Cameron would become household names.
He spent 35 years on the air, 22 of them as a 5DN breakfast announcer, which earned him recognition in the Guinness Book of Records.
Try and work out your limitations, what you've got that you're good at.
Nights were the domain of Jeff Medwell.
5DN, it's 9:07. And it's a very good evening to Jeff Medwell.
Good evening, Rob Tolano. Good evening, South Australia.
It was the station where two sporting legends got their start, in Bruce McAvaney and KG.
You don't have to like me, but you do have to listen every afternoon 4 to 7 because I present Adelaide's original and best sports show.
Mercurial manager Paul Linkson credited with having an eye for new talent.
During his 29 years with 5DN, Paul has worked with some of the greats. Many a record-breaking performance was presented on the Hit and Miss show during the 60s.
Other famous names included Ken Dickin and Bob Francis. DN was known for the strength of its news service.
Our emphasis was on our credibility, our news, and our ability to cover news stories and do it with authority.
The most memorable report of all coming on Ash Wednesday.
One of the most moving reports on the fires has come from Murray Nichol, a journalist who works for Adelaide's Radio 5DN.
He decided to do a commentary as his house burned down.
At the moment, I'm watching my house burn down. The roof is falling in. It's in flames, and there's nothing I can do about it.
DN became the place for visiting pollies to stop to bend an ear.
Language at the Grand Prix. Now let me finish.
Talkback was a very important part of 5DN's success.
At one stage, the station had this as a slogan.
When Adelaide needs to know, you turn to Radio 5DN.
The trouble was that when Adelaide needs to know translates into wank, and nobody noticed till all the printing was done.
In 1990, the station won the bid for an FM licence.
DN management is still tight-lipped about the proposed FM format.
It was always going to be a disaster because people were never going to take 5DN seriously as a rock and roll radio station.
And despite a later brand revival on a different frequency,
Hinch filling in for Jeremy Cordeaux for the rest of this week,
DN was never able to regain its glory.
I think there is still a great deal of nostalgia for 5DN.
You turn to Radio 5DN.
Now, Bruce, in my best radio voice.
Well, you got a good head for radio.
Oh, thank you. Adelaide can't take a trick.